And it's like, that's your quote in the beginning before we started. I mentioned like seeing people as they are, not how you
That's
want them to be, but as they are, truthfully. And a lot of the times we create stories about people. I've always wanted like a girlfriend, like a best friend. Like, oh,
bestie.
yes, like I want women around me so bad that like one woman comes around me and I'm like, oh my God,
My
okay. So,
bestie.
oh yes, I'm like, oh geez. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, I get so angry with them. And James is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, they said they wanted a garden and now she's not even planting seeds. And he's like, she lives in an apartment. What do you think? And I'm like, well, I thought. And he's like, what illusion did you have about this person? Why did you do them such a disservice? You put them on this
Mm.
pedestal, but because of that, you
Oh
didn't
my.
allow them to be who they are. And it's real, like I see it now so much. It's so funny that like all of this is happening around me because I'm like, oh, I've made people up in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not okay for them or for myself because I get let down because I'm like, come on, guys, let's go. And I'm like 80 steps ahead and I look back and I'm like,
How
you,
dare
what are
you
you
be behind
doing?
me?
Yeah. And it's like, that's not nice. Like, you're just not being nice at that point. Allow them to be who they are. Allow them
That's
to,
true love.
yeah. And that's
That's
true love.
unconditional love.
Unconditional love, the depths of the heart, like staying in your heart space,
Mm.
allowing like, and I feel like it's so funny, like the psychedelic festival movement, because I see the psyop of it. I'm like, oh, you just wanted to have sex with everyone. Oh, okay,
Well,
I get
because
it.
they think that that's what will bring the fulfillment, right? It's like
Yes,
they swap it in their minds. They think that's what love is. And
yes,
so they trade it in their minds. And that instead of I mean, they won't recognize until they deal with their traumas, but yeah.
yeah. It amazes me, and like coming from that realm, it like I've had to go through, and like this is where the whole I feel like I don't have control over my life thing comes in. Is because like I got introduced to cannabis and mushrooms, and then I went into the festival realm, and then I looked back and I was like, oh, what? That's not it. And then I went into like Christian homesteading and I was like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, whoa, that's not it
Yeah.
either. And then I went through this other loop and I'm like, where are we going now? The other day I asked James, I was like, oh, what's going on? He's like, don't worry, I'll steer the ship. Like, don't even worry about it. I'm gonna deal with it. And I was like, but like, we're friends. And he's like, you got friends, you're fine, you're good. And it's so funny because I get into these like down moments of like, oh, I don't have any friends. And then I pop on a vibrant live stream, or I go into, y'all's comment section, or Michelle's Healing Home. Like that's a big one. Grounded Extracts. Like I go into their comments and I'm like, hey, everybody. And everyone's like, oh, hey, guys. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, like you just like Michelle just lives in Washington or Oregon. She lives far away. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it. And one thing I told her was I was like, I've been wanting these friends and these allies, and maybe the ally that I'm looking for are really plants. So I'm making a medicinal herb garden, and I'm gonna take one of Kyle's classes and study with him. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I have purpose now that I can give back to my community. Um, and I was talking to Serena, his wife, and I was like, I'm so excited for his class because I feel special. And I'm not the only person in the class. It's on his website. Anyone can go and sign up for it. And I was like, but I feel special. I feel like because I love birth, but I don't know many people around me that had the same viewpoints as I do. And I had a woman message me the other day about my services. And I was like, yeah, but she told me she worked at a hospital. And I did not know how to say this, but I was like, I don't, I don't work with anyone that has had, I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but like that went through the initiation that was a few years ago that got
Okay,
the
good.
poke. Like I can't work with anyone that's got the poke. And she was like, okay, well, can you explain this? Like, why? I was like, oh, because birth is spiritual. If you don't trust yourself and you need someone else to give you
Validation.
an innate ability that you already have to heal yourself, like you can heal yourself. You are not broken, but you don't. If you went through that initiation that was a few years ago, like you don't believe that. You think you are broken. You think the world's broken. And we will, I was like, it's a philosophy. We will not vibrate. We will not resonate with one another. It would cause us both too much pain to work together. And that's why. Like, because I would be like, why are you going to get an ultrasound? Why? I would just question. I will never ever tell a woman what to do. I will just ask for their opinion.
Yeah.
What's going on? And it always, and I connected this whenever I was on Chance's podcast on Interverse, was I think it's related to the idea of original sin. Like the idea of original sin, put it into people's heads that they're already broken. And especially with babies. Like there are some people around here that we know, and they are Orthodox. And she was like, oh, we're all born with original sin. I know that for a fact. So I repent. And Ja was running around. I was like, you think he's sinning? You think he is sinful? Was born with original sin? The most pure being in this room, he's broken? And she was like, oh, well, I'm like, why? And it's interesting because the same woman who's like, Jesus has us all, God has us all, we're all saved. I was like, oh, so you're going to do a home birth? And she was like, no. I was like, why? If you think God has you up in his pocket and everything is divine, you don't trust him? But like I couldn't do it. And I'm like, not with that attitude, you can't. You're right. No, you're right. You can't do it. If you think you can't 100% take it, boom.
Yeah.
You're already broken. But when you tell people it like that, they're like, oh, you think I'm broken now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude,
you think you're broken. Original sin.
Yeah.
You already said it.
You already said it.